What's up guys, Danielle here, neutralsupport.net, bringing you something a little different today. So usually we talk about tools, but today I'm going to talk about some different kinds of tools. The tools to start your own mobile bicycle business. So this is going to be a series, so this is just part one. Are you ready to do it?
Ready?
I'm set to take it to the rack, Jack.
The idea of starting a mobile bicycle business is really attractive to a lot of people. All the time when I go to people's houses, they would say things like, I would love to do this in my retirement. And wouldn't this be such a nice, it's so nice to make your own schedule. Things like that, which just seem, kind of uninformed at this point after doing it for a long time. So let me back up. For those that don't know me, I started a mobile bike business 9 years ago. I ran that for 7 years straight, strictly mobile. So I had a Sprinter van, insurance, a business, the whole deal. Ran it mobile in my area. That started in 2013. In 2013, it was really hard to do a mobile business in the bike industry because accounts were hard to open and things were just incredibly tough to navigate. They're not easy to navigate now, but if you have a mobile business these days, at least when you call up QBP or one of these other companies, they know what you're talking about. In 2013, if you called up a distributor and you said, I'm a mobile business, they pictured like a guy in a truck with a Stanley tin toolbox of adjustable wrenches, and they just ran the other way. So I'm going to go through with you how to start a business, if you should start a business, and what that might look like. And there are lots of different forms that mobile businesses take, so you don't have to do it like anybody else did it. You can be as flexible as you want, which is one of the benefits. The overhead is generally very low, so it's much less daunting than opening a brick and mortar. Since I started my mobile business, I now have a brick and mortar, so my mobile side evolved into a store where we still do some types of mobile, but not all, and then I also have a storefront. So it goes however it needs to go for you. Some businesses stay small, some businesses grow, some businesses fail. A lot of mobile businesses fail, and so that's why I wanted to make this series so that you could get a good footing, see if this is something that you actually want to do. So let's start with the types of people who typically choose to do a mobile business. The bike enthusiast is a common one. So bike enthusiasts are very likely to say, hey, I want to do a mobile business. I could do that. Bikes are easy because they've seen their own bike and maybe they've seen a few friends' bikes and they think, wow, bikes are so easy to work on. I could do this for a living. There are a couple problems with that. One is you only see the bikes of people around you. You will not see all of the different technology that you need to know. Two, the bikes that you have might be easy to work on because you take care of them, but in a mobile setting, even in a shop setting, but especially in a mobile setting where you're the only person, the problem solving, you have to know how to problem solve and know how to do everything, because now it's just you. You don't have anybody to fall back on, and the internet can only tell you so much, and you really don't want to be using the internet in front of a customer. Another type of person, the garage mechanic. So garage mechanics, there are lots of them around us here in North Carolina as well, where someone in the neighborhood works on bikes. They work on them in the garage. They grow their business from there. There's nothing wrong with starting that way. So a lot of good bike mechanics start somewhere small, like assembling bikes in a shop or working in their garage and picking up more work over time. The important thing is to know if you have the education level to start a business. So if you can change a flat tire and adjust a shift cable and adjust a brake, that's not necessarily enough to know how to do your entire business. So bikes are going to come to you with all kinds of problems, bottom bracket issues, hydraulic disc brakes. So you either have to limit what you work on to what you know or learn more before you start. So reaching that level of education where you can actually start your business is key. So make sure that you get some level of education where you're comfortable, preferably work in a shop or some environment where you're with a professional, because that's actually, like, I got super lucky. I worked in a shop with a mechanic. He'd been there for ages. He let me apprentice, and I learned all of this stuff from somebody who knew what they were doing. It's different when you have to learn everything on your own in your garage from probably the internet. So the information that you get on the internet is not necessarily always right. They make everything look super easy. It's just tough. So you have to have the right tools. You have to have the knowledge to know when you have the right tools or when you don't. And you also have to have the ability to teach yourself, which seems to be maybe the biggest hurdle, even if you think you know enough to start your business, something's going to come in that you don't know. And when you're on your own and you don't have anybody else, you have to at least set yourself up to have the resources to go find that information and learn the correct way to do it. Make sure that you get the correct tool to do it. Because if you don't, that can be a huge reputation killer. If you do something wrong and it fails, it can also be a very expensive thing. The other types of people that typically go into a mobile bike mechanic business are bike mechanics who maybe didn't have anywhere to go in their shop. For example, I didn't have anywhere to go up in the shop that I was in. There was already a service manager. I was just going to be where I was forever. So starting my own business and moving a little bit outside of the area of my other bike shop made a lot of sense. I was also from the south of my county where there were no bike shops. So that whole area was completely underserved. Made sense to open a business down there. So regular bike mechanics can be really enthusiastic. I do typically lean towards it makes more sense if you're a bike mechanic to open a mobile bike business, because typically you're on your own. And if you're a bike mechanic already, the work part will be easy. The hard part is you have to be everyone now. So you can't just hide in the back of your mobile business. You are the front, you are the background emails, the phone answerer, everything. But if you're a bike mechanic, you have a nice basis that you can use. You have the knowledge, so you can fix the bikes, and people will give you a little bit of leeway as you figure out the other stuff. If you don't know how to fix the bikes from the outset and you're figuring out the other stuff, you're going to get yourself into trouble. So the last person that we see a lot that goes into a mobile bike business is the disgruntled bike shop employee. Disgruntled bike shop employee is in a tough spot. Typically, they open their business as a direct competition to the shop that they were in, as a slight to them, or as a try to prove to them that they were worth it. And that can get you in kind of a situation. So if you're really doing this because you're just angry at your current shop, maybe think about the positives of being a mobile bike mechanic. Think through the system, see if you can do it. Think through the actual problems that you might have or the actual successes that you might have. See if you want to do it. Don't just do it because you hate where you work. That can be a reason, but there's a lot of work that goes into being a mobile bike mechanic. So if you really don't like where you work, maybe try to address that first and then step into being a mobile bike mechanic from a different viewpoint. So some common misconceptions that we see all the time in mobile bike mechanic work or an independent mobile business is you make your own schedule. So inherently that's true. You do make your own schedule. But what ends up happening to most people, I'd say there are plenty of people who set healthy boundaries and maybe they're able to keep them. But if the work comes and you need the money, typically the work creates your schedule. If you decline a bunch of work in favor of having a better schedule, the work doesn't continue to come because people think that you're inflexible. So they're always saying things like, oh, it must be nice to make your own schedule or your hours are great. But really, you're doing a lot of work at times that you wouldn't necessarily want to do it just because the work is coming, especially in the beginning. So in the beginning, I worked 52 weekends on top of the actual week that I was working at events just so that I could be out there. Would I choose to work every single weekend now? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But at that time, I worked every weekend. I didn't make that schedule. That wasn't super flexible. I was just working all the time, trying to get out there, trying to make sure that people saw me. And so the idea that this was less work, not true at all. The other misconception is that bike mechanics are like millionaires. I think that's more of a consumer misconception than a mechanic one. If you've worked in a bike shop, you know that you are not a millionaire. I guarantee it. When you start off on a mobile business, you're not going to make tons and tons of money right off the bat. You might make good money depending on the situation. You might be able to plan it out where you have a good population, a good basis to make money. But typically, the beginning is going to be rough. So you really have to be careful and plan out how much money you actually need to survive initially, and then how much you're going to need to make to survive in the long term. If you can't make it to your goal of what you need to make to survive, it's not going to be a good business for you. It's a lot of work. If you're not making the money you need, it's going to be very dissatisfying. From the bike enthusiast and the garage mechanic side of things, we get the working on bikes is easy misconception, which working on bikes can be easy. Some bikes are very straightforward, and if you know what you're doing, a bike can come in and out and feel great. There are always those outliers. So think about all of the variables that you just don't realize could happen. You get a bike that has a stuck bottom bracket or a seized headset. You get things that you can't really plan ahead for. Customers can do some amazing things to bikes that you would never think possible. And they managed to make it happen. And it's the first time you've ever seen it. And you spend 4 hours doing a $20 repair because the repair that you thought you were doing was something like fixing a flat. You get into it and realize that you can't get the wheel off because the axle is stuck to the bike. There's like a cascade of things that can happen. So working on bikes is very satisfying because you get a bike in, you do the work, the task gets completed, the project's completed, you get the satisfaction, you move to the next bike. So you are constantly starting and ending projects, which is a super satisfying way to work for a lot of people, especially people who like to work with their hands, like bike mechanics. But then you get those bikes that no matter what you do, even in the end, after you spend hours on them, they just don't feel right. They don't feel good. There's nothing more you can do for them. It's not always simple. It's not always straightforward. You run into things that you don't know. You have to know how to deal with that. So working on bikes is not always simple. Working on bikes is not always fun. Generally speaking, it's pretty enjoyable as long as you're prepared for those things. A big one. My services should be cheaper than a bike shop. We are going to talk about that later in another video, I'm sure. But you're offering a premium service with a mobile bike mechanic, not a lesser service. So a lot of people's mentality is, well, it costs less for me to run my business, so my services should cost less. That's not true. Your profit might be higher or your margin might be higher because you have a lower overhead, but the service that you're offering is premium. So you run into people, depending on who you're talking to, some customers will think your service is a premium. Some customers will think, I'm only using you because it's convenient, so I want to pay you less. I would say we need to hit a middle where we price exactly fairly for what you're doing, which is a premium service, and don't move from that because it actually hurts everyone if some people charge super low in the market and other people charge super high in the market. You need to charge for what you're doing, and that is a premium service. So keep in mind that you are offering something that is more than the average bike shop, not less. So you shouldn't be charging less than your local shop for anything. So here's another one. I don't like working with people, so I should work on my own. Maybe I should start a mobile bike shop. If you don't like working with people, you won't like dealing with the public either. So as a mobile bike shop, you are pandering more to customers because you're the only interaction they get. They see you, they talk to you, they schedule with you, you do the work, you're at their house a lot of times, depending on how your business works. So if you're setting up your business to be customer facing that way, you have to be way more engaged with your clients than you probably were in the past at your shop. So some mechanics think like, oh, well, I don't like working with people and I don't like dealing with customers, so I'll become a mobile bike mechanic and I'll just go to the work. The work doesn't speak for itself, so you end up talking to lots of people and having to deal with customers and having to have all those engagements. You become everything instead of just the person who works on the bikes. Now you are everyone, the person who talks on the phone, the person who answers the emails, the person who's checking them out. So keep that in mind. It's not something to do if you don't like people. Really, if you love people, mobile bike mechanics are actually probably the way to go. You get to actually physically interact with almost every single client that you have in a personal way. So it actually personalizes the service. You're interacting more with people. You might be working alone. So if you just don't like working with other people, you will be working alone. So maybe that's the goal. But you also have to deal with all of your clients. Last misconception is I'm overworked at the shop that I work at, so I'm going to start my own business so that I can work less. This is touching on something we've already touched on in some of the other misconceptions, especially the last one. You are now everyone. So you are managing your inventory, you are managing your vehicle, paying all the bills, making sure that they go where they need to go, paying your insurance, doing the actual work, answering the emails, managing your website. everything. Everything is now on your plate. You're doing the bookkeeping. Chances are, you might think, I'm going to pay somebody to do some of that, but you probably can't at the beginning. You probably have to do a lot of it on your own, unless you're just very wealthy and you're just doing this for fun, which if you are, you probably don't even need to watch these videos. Just go spend your money and somebody will set it up for you. But if you're doing it as somebody, like I started with around $30,000 total to get everything. So my vehicle, my insurance, every piece of it. I didn't have money to pay someone to do lots of stuff. So you're going to be doing every piece. So even when you're done working, usually there's more work to be done. You get home, you still have to answer emails. You get home, you still have to do your bookkeeping. Just lots of stuff that you don't think about when you're working in a shop because somebody else is taking care of all of that. Most of the time, somebody else is doing the ordering, making sure that the inventory is there. Somebody else is paying you, so you don't have to think about it. When you go onto your own business, it's awesome because you have the freedom. The money is spent the way that you want. It's exactly the way you want, but you are the person in charge of that. So it's not necessarily less work, especially if you're successful. It's probably more work. So if you got through all of this and you're still like, no, that sounds like me and I do want to open a mobile business, that's awesome because I really think that it's a rewarding experience. It's a cool job, very flexible. You can get opportunities come your way, different opportunities, bike share contracts, things that maybe a bike shop isn't equipped to handle. And the mobile model is so flexible that you can become exactly what you need to become, trim your costs down to absolutely as low as possible, and really reap the benefits of owning your own business. I enjoyed it a lot. Now I have this brick and mortar also, which adds to the workload a little bit, but I did really enjoy running my mobile business. I loved how it was pretty flexible. It was a ton of work, but it was still pretty flexible. So when I needed to do something, I had the flexibility to do it. So if you got to this point and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready, maybe check into think about the reasons why you don't feel like you're ready. If you don't feel like you know enough, there are ways to learn. So you can go to an actual bike school like ABI, UBI, Barnett's. Well, Barnett's is now U of Q, but you can go to a bike school to pick up actual tangible mechanic knowledge, or get a job at a shop, work in the back, get a job as a bike assembler, do something that puts bikes in your hands that you aren't expecting. If you only work on bikes that you know, you won't encounter the problems that help you learn and help you grow. If you can't get to those stages and you have enough knowledge, I would encourage you to set your menu to something that you're comfortable with. You will pick up skills as you go, but you just have to make sure the work that you're doing is being done exactly the way that it's supposed to, because if it's not, you'll get in deep trouble. It's super easy to make a small mistake that has big consequences. Take, for example, Costco. Costco just got sued for $6 million because the brake levers were swapped on a bike that it sold. So it doesn't take very much for big money problems to happen, which is also why later in the series we're going to talk about insurance and why you have to have it. You have to have it. If you're a business doing bike work, it's too easy to get sued and they'll ruin your whole life. So you have to have insurance of some kind when you start out on your own. But we're going to cover that in a different video, so don't even worry about it right now. Just get to the point where you understand, are you ready to do it or are you not? That's for you to decide, but hopefully this gives you a basis. Then we can move forward into the fun stuff that is planning out your actual business. So I hope you enjoyed this little part 1 walkthrough about if you're ready to start your mobile business. Keep a lookout. There'll be other parts to this series. I'll be putting them on the channel. You can subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button and it'll tell you every time we put one out. I'll walk you right through everything. You'll be set up. You'll be making big bucks as a mobile bike mechanic, which is what everybody wants. Are you ready? Head over to neutralsport.net. We have some swag and some other cool stuff. Feel free to comment below or contact us to ask questions. We love to answer them. I might have missed something. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, so I have a lot of experience in the way that mine worked out, and I've met a lot of other mobile operators, so I'm going to be trying to cover the different types in this video series and different ways that you can go, because not every model works for every area or every person. That's the beauty of making your own business. You can make it exactly what you want and exactly what you need. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next time.